in Parliament, certain things have been happening.
Yeah.
This whole, it's interesting what this current Parliament has thrown up at us as a country.
Yeah.
So James Gyakye Quayson was, first of all, he had his challenge with the dual citizenship as he was running for Parliament, and he's now actually gotten his citizenship as Ghanaian. But it's like the question is, did you lie to us? When you were filing. So let's go into the story here. The Supreme Court will be ruling today. Okay, so let's get to citynewsroom.com. The story says Supreme Court to rule on Gyakye Quayson's case today. And it goes on to say the Supreme Court will later today, Wednesday, rule on an application to seeking to stop Gyakye Quayson, James Gyakye Quayson from working as the Member of Parliament for Ascent North. Michael Ankoma Nifa, who brought the application to the Supreme Court, told the court that James Gyakye Quayson's continuous stay in office despite a High Court judgment annulling his election offended the Constitution and was not fair to the people of Ascent North. The embattled Member of Parliament appealed against the High Court judgment but was struck out for failing to file written submissions within the mandatory period. Okay, at the last hearing on April 5th, 2022, the lawyer for Michael Ankoma Nifa, Frank Davis, said his client has established grievous breaches of the 1992 Constitution and the other electoral laws against the disputed MP. But the lead counsel for Mr. Quayson, Chachu Chikata, who had raised a preliminary objection to the motion, argued that the Supreme Court rules did not provide for such motions and that the applicant should have sought leave from the Supreme Court to allow him to bring the motion. All right. Now, Michael Ankoma Nifa, a resident of Asin Breku in the Central Region, filed a petition at the Cape Coast High Court seeking to annul the declaration of Mr. Gyakye Quayson as the MP of Ascent North. And the story goes on there. Yeah, so today we're going to be getting an update from the Supreme Court. They're going to rule on what it is that their decision is. But our colleague Sixtus Dong Ulo is at the Supreme Court this morning. Sixtus, good morning.
Morning, David.
Yeah, so can you give us a sense of what we're expecting today?
Whichever way the decision goes today, it will be those decisions that people, students of the law particularly, will be interested in. The reasoning of the court that would have led to the decision that would be given today. Because it informs or it will set a certain trajectory or guideline going forward, particularly related to parliamentary election petition. Now, there are a number of ways that this can go, and the first way we can look at it is the Supreme Court granting the injunction. The Supreme Court granting the injunction would basically mean, or straight up, remove Mr. James Gyakye Quayson as Member of Parliament for the Ascent North area. This would be an enforcement of the High Court decision has been created by the applicants in this matter.
Okay.
Now, the High Court decision itself was triggered by the man who is now in the Supreme Court, Michael Ankoma Nifa. He is the one who went to the High Court in Cape Coast with an election petition that eventually resulted in the annulment of the election of James Gyakye Quayson. So if the Supreme Court upholds the argument that his continuous stay in Parliament despite the High Court judgment is unconstitutional, and so he should be debarred from holding himself out as a Member of Parliament, it will simply have the effect of removing Mr. James Gyakye Quayson, at least temporarily, Now, temporarily because there have been processes to appeal against the judgment of the High Court. Those processes were thrown out of the Court of Appeal, also sitting in Cape Coast, a couple of weeks ago. Okay. And this was purely on a technical ground. The technical ground being that Mr. Gyakye Quayson had not submitted or filed his processes, his written submission on his appeal within a stipulated time period.
Okay.
Now, the rules, of course, allow you a certain duration within which to file your processes. If you don't do so, then you are struck out. Now, while the notice of appeal had been given, and Mr. Gyakye Quayson decided to go to the Supreme Court, asking for an interpretation of Article 94(2) of the Constitution.
Okay.
That particular provision has been contentious right from the beginning of the hearing of the election petition. Contentious because Mr. Gyakye Quayson had said that that provision was critical to the determination of the matter, and the High Court did not have jurisdiction to give interpretation to that particular provision.
Okay.
And 94(2) basically talks about you owing allegiance to a country other than Ghana.
Yeah.
Now, both parties in the case had at one point or the other attempted getting the Supreme Court to deal with this matter. So while Gyakye Quayson had said that the High Court did not have the jurisdiction, he asked the Supreme Court to refer the matter to itself and give interpretation in the matter. Again, while we were at that, Michael Ankuma Nimfa also came to the Supreme Court, telling the Supreme Court that despite the decision of the High Court, Mr. James Gyakye Quayson was still at foot. That is to say, he was still representing the people of Assin North, which would be unconstitutional. So the Supreme Court should place an injunction on his continuous representation of the people and interpret the same Article 94(2) of the Constitution. So both parties along the line have sought interest in the interpretation of Article 94(2). So the Supreme Court would have the task of, answering the question whether or not Mr. James Gyakye Quayson should go home and sit down, stop representing himself or holding himself out as a member of Parliament for Assin North. Or the Supreme Court could also take the position that indeed the continuous representation as a member of Parliament does no harm, or is in fact of a benefit to the people than it would if Mr. James Gyakye Quayson wasn't at court. So that is to say that the Supreme Court can say, based on the fact that the people of Assin North are entitled to representation, notwithstanding that there is a problem or a contention on the seat, Mr. James Gyakye Quayson to remain as the member of Parliament for the area in the interim. In the interim.
Yeah.
In the interim, because the other leg of the case asking for an interpretation of Article 94(2) will still be hanging around the Supreme Court. So now, that is the other way that today's verdict could go.
Okay. Now, assuming that it goes in the direction that is not favorable to Mr. Quayson, Gyakye Quayson, then what happens subsequently?
Well, the lawyers would often tell you that an injunction is a discretionary remedy. It is at the discretion of the court to grant an injunction when you ask for it, or not to grant it. You are not entitled to it. Now, the fact that the Supreme Court would have given a ruling on this would make it what it has to be. But of course, our law always allows the opportunity for an aggrieved party to try to seek redress. But the fact that this is a discretionary remedy and this is the Supreme Court would make it hard for you but to comply. Now, there's also a provision in the Constitution that says that if you are a citizen, or if you have been brought before the court and the court pronounces judgment in the matter, and you fail or refuse or decide not to abide by that judgment of the court, you would have been committing an offense and opening yourself up for more trouble.
Okay.
So in the instant case, James Gyakye Quayson would be bound by what the Supreme Court is. But like I said, there are two legs to this particular, or two applications that are currently before the Supreme Court, which are the long process. And this is the execution is taking aside as member of Parliament what the participating aspect of it would continue.
All right, Sextus, thank you very much for that update. We look forward to seeing which way the Supreme Court will rule eventually.
Yeah. And happy birthday.
And happy birthday to you,
happy birthday,
Sextus.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good one. We're waiting for you.
Yes.
All right. So that was our colleague Sextus Dong Ulo, bringing us an update as to what we can expect from the Supreme Court today.